Hello and welcome to this edition of Christian Connections. My special guest for today is Dr. Mario Ceballos.
Thank you.
Dr. Ceballos, thanks for being with us today.
It is my pleasure.
Now, Dr. Ceballos, he is the Associate Director for Chaplaincy Ministries at the General Conference.
That is
that
correct?
correct? Great. And before we talk more about what you do there, I'd like to find out more about you before that. Where were you born, Dr. Ceballos?
I was born in the city of Barquisimeto in the country of Venezuela.
Okay. And were you born into a Christian family?
Yes, actually I am a third-generation Seventh-day Adventist, and I am a second-generation pastor. My father was minister also.
Right. And was it natural that you follow in his footsteps?
Well, at the beginning, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a physician.
Okay.
And it's an interesting story because one day, actually, the treasurer of the academy came up to me and said, "Mario, there are some churches around that have no one to preach. Would you be willing to go and preach?" And I said, "I never preached in my life." And he said, "Oh, well, talk to your dad. Get some of his sermons, and then you can read them in church." So I did, and I began to study these sermons, to memorize them, and he took me to a couple of churches, and I began to share those sermons and fell in love with sharing the gospel. And then I decided, well, I don't want to be a physician, I want to be a minister. When I was saying that I wanted to be a physician, I didn't even know why I wanted to. It just sounded cool. But then I felt that my calling was the ministry.
Right. So where did that calling take you first?
Well, I was in high school. After that, I decided to come actually to the United States. I felt that the pioneers of the church and the beginning of the church was in this country. And most of our literature, most of our books, even though there are translations, they were originally written in English. So I said, I want to go learn the English language so that I can read the early pioneers, the story, and the books of the Spirit of Prophecy in the original language. So I came to Puerto Rico first. That was my first step. And then after 2 years of going to school there, I came up to Massachusetts, to Atlantic Union College. And that's where I did my undergraduate education.
And that was in theology?
Yes, in religion was my major.
Right. And where did you go after that?
Well, after that, I wanted to go to the seminary. But finances were a little tight. My father was in the mission field. He was at the time working as the president of the Adventist college, and now university in the Dominican Republic. Didn't have money and didn't have much faith either. So I said, well, let me see how I can earn a scholarship. So I decided to join the U.S. Army. I did that, and I served in the Army as a pharmacist technician. I do not recommend anyone to do that today. I do not recommend our young people to join the military. It's not the best place to practice your faith. But during my time there, something interesting happened. I wanted to, when the Sabbath came, I wanted to have my Sabbath off. And I went up to a chaplain, actually, and I asked the chaplain to help me to get my Sabbath off. And he basically said, I cannot help you.
Really?
Your soul may belong to God, but your body belongs to the U.S. Army. You have to work on the Sabbath as you have been scheduled. I was very disappointed, so I said, well, I don't think I'm going to get any help from anybody, but let me go to my commanding officer. So I went to my commanding officer and I asked the same question. He looked at me and he said, Mario, I used to be a Seventh-day Adventist.
Really? No kidding?
Yes, and, and he called the first sergeant and he said, First Sergeant, when Private Ceballos come for duty on the Sabbath, make sure that you let him know time in advance so that he can find someone to take his place or to pay somebody to do his duty. And that's how I was able to keep the Sabbath. And then I decided that I wanted to become a chaplain in the military so that I can help other young people that make the mistakes I made to be able to worship as they want on the Sabbath, as God asked us to do. So I served in the military for about 3 years, and right after that, actually during my last 2 weeks, I had permission to leave early and to attend the seminary. I went to Andrews University, and I attended the seminary, did my Master's of Divinity. From there, I received a call. But before I joined the military, after I finished high school, I found a beautiful woman. Her name at the time was Gloria Gonzalez, and she became my wife. So during the time I was serving in the military also, my only son was born. And then the three of us went to the seminary. I completed my Master's of Divinity there, and then I received a call, and I began working for the church, and I began in Texas.
And that was as a pastor?
As a pastor, I was given a district in southern Texas, in the town of Kingsville, and I had a church in Kingsville and in Alice. That's close to Corpus Christi, and I served there for about 3 years, and then at that time I was elected Associate Youth Director for the Texas Conference. And I served there for another 3 years when I was offered a church, a district up in Massachusetts. And there I also served for about 4 years. And again I was elected to be a Youth Director and then Church Ministry Director for the Southern New England Conference. And after that, something interesting happened with my son, that one day as I was walking out the door, ready for my next appointment, I needed to go somewhere for some meeting I don't quite recall. He looked at me and he said, "Dad, it seems to me that your job is more important than your family."
Oh, no.
Yeah, that made me think. But I said, "God, I only do your will, what you want me to do." 4 months later, I received a call to be a chaplain at Florida Hospital. And then at the time, that's when I began my work as a hospital chaplain.
Right. So all these years as you were pastoring, you still had at the back of your mind the idea that you wanted to be a chaplain, is that right?
Well, not only that, during all those years, when I finished the seminary, and as I was pastoring in different places, I was serving in the U.S. Navy as a reserve chaplain.
Okay,
so
so
I was doing both
chaplaincy.
things at the same time.
Right.
I was doing chaplaincy work. And right before I received my call, I was thinking about hospital chaplaincy, and I had taken what is called 1 unit of clinical pastoral education, also called CPE. That is a training for pastors that want to become chaplains in the hospitals. All chaplains are pastors first. Not all pastors are chaplains. But then I wanted to specialize in that area. I was already serving in the military as a chaplain. That unit of CPE, I took that to enhance my pastoral skills, and that also assisted me in coming into the chaplaincy ministries.
Right. So you've been a pastor, an army chaplain, and a hospital chaplain.
Correct.
What's some of the differences between those three
These
positions?
three.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, my first love is pastor.
Okay.
That's what I trained for. That's what my call is. It's wonderful to be in a church and be a pastor there. That is exciting. My work with the military was because I wanted to help other young people that may have find themselves in the same situation that I had before. That job basically is, assisting, helping young people of all kinds. My job in the military has helped me to work with people that are dealing with stress of seeing sailors and soldiers very, very injured, and the distress and that causes, and working with them through those processes. I'm also helping people, not only Adventists, from many denominations, find accommodation to their spiritual needs while they're serving in the military.
Which is a different experience than what you had.
Yeah. And the job there is to support those people that are going through, being in charge of the spiritual program of the unit. It's called the Command Religious Program. There is a commander, but the commander depends on the chaplain to develop a religious program for them It is extremely important for the commander to see that the spiritual needs of their people are met. Because if they are not met, they cannot do their function. Their function is to protect the country. Just like a policeman protects the community, a soldier protects the country. Then when we go to hospital chaplaincy, it is also different. See, the difference between a pastor and a chaplain is that the pastor is the person in charge of a congregation. The chaplain is not in charge. The chaplain is a pastor that supports the commander or the president of the institution. In the Adventist institution, the spiritual leaders of the institution are the presidents and directors of those institutions. And the chaplains support the spiritual program of the institution. And in the hospitals, then you support the patients that are there, and you support the staff, and you support also the executives of the institution.
Right, okay. So you were a hospital chaplain for a while in Florida, you were saying?
Yes,
earlier?
I began in Florida as a hospital chaplain. Then I was appointed associate director for the program there. And after 10 years, I accepted a call to be the director of a chaplaincy with our hospitals in Kettering, Ohio. I served there for about 8 years, first as a director, and then as a vice president of spiritual services and missions for the hospital. And then is when I received the call when I was elected associate youth director for the general conference in 2008. And that's the job that I now hold.
All right. At your time in Kettering, you said you were the vice president for spiritual services. What did that entail?
We had about 5 hospitals there. So first of all, you coordinate the delivery of spiritual care among the 5 hospitals. You work with the chaplains. You supervise them. You develop programs that will help the spiritual needs of all of your patients. You have 600-700 patients at any given time there. You also offer leadership to the bioethics committees of the hospital, and you serve in different capacities, organize mission trips, organize spiritual retreats, and work with the leadership of the institution. So you become the pastor of the institution. You are the pastor of the executives, the pastor of the staff. That's where you concentrate, especially on the top leadership. And then your chaplains will carry on the duties of spiritual care with the patients and the rest of the staff.
Right. It's okay. And do you still serve as a chaplain with the U.S. Navy Reserve?
I retired in 2011. I served for the reserves as a chaplain for 28 years, total in the military for 32.
That was a long time.
Yeah, now that I look back, yes.
What were some of your best experiences in that position?
In the military?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, there is a long list of different things that we were able to do and accomplish. But I remember one time, for example, as we were working in one of my last assignments, we were receiving people coming back from serving in different areas. Mainly, we work with nurses and physicians coming back. I remember sitting down with one young nurse and talking to her, asking her, share with me, anything that you want to talk about. And she began to tell me the story of a Marine that was injured in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, most of the injuries, especially limbs, were not just one limb. Usually it was like 2 limbs, double, triple, and quadruple amputees.
Wow.
And she said, I remember especially one young man that reminded me so much of my brother. His 2 legs were blown up. And actually almost from the waist down, it was gone. He was brought from Afghanistan to Germany, where she was working at the time. And they knew that he was going to die. And the only reason why he was brought up was to allow the family to fly from here to there and be with him before he died. That was one of those incidents that sticks in my mind. And another thing that we do as chaplains is we do what is called CACO. That stands for Casualty Assistant Call Officer. When there is a death, the Navy do not send a telegram, do not make a telephone call. They send an officer and a chaplain to notify the family. So that is one of the duties that we did many times. That was very difficult.
That must have been really hard.
Yeah, usually when you show up at the door of a family and you knock at the door, usually you and the other officer that is coming, you come in uniform.
Right.
I remember one time in Massachusetts, I remember knocking at the door of this family, and as the door opened, this woman came out. I will never forget her beautiful blue eyes looking at me, and when she looked at my uniform and the cross symbol of a chaplain in the uniform, the first thing she said is, "What happened to Scott?" And then you know, and they know that you have bad news.
Yeah.
And then you have to communicate that to them. Usually the chaplain is the one that does that.
Right.
Sometimes when the officer that is coming with you is very young, he doesn't know how to do it, then that is the role of the chaplain. And those moments are very difficult.
Right. What if the family is not a family of faith? How do you talk about death in that context?
Well, it was very interesting, and in this particular case, when you come in, what they want to talk about is what happened.
Right.
The first thing they ask is, what happened? We haven't seen anything in the news. Of course, the news is not going to be released until we call back the Pentagon and notify them that the family have been done.
Right.
So you try to support them in their beliefs. In that case, the family was a Catholic family. And when finally the body came back, they had a Catholic funeral. And not at the church, but at the funeral, at the cemetery, at the burial, the priest asked me if I was willing to work with him during the funeral. And it was interesting because I chose to read out of his own reading the Bible verses that talk about the resurrection. And those passages that we as Seventh-day Adventist ministers also read during the burial. So I was able to read and share what we believe. And I remember her looking at me and asking me what happened. And saying, well, what I can share with you is that your son gave his life for the fellow man. Quoting a Bible verse and talking to her about that. And you look at beliefs, because you'll be amazed to see how much we have in common with other faiths. So you emphasize those common beliefs. Beliefs such as the Lord Jesus Christ is in heaven, seated at the right side of God, and he's coming to judge the living and the dead. That's our belief. It's similar to beliefs of other denominations. So you emphasize and you share, especially those beliefs that are common. You cannot play the part of a priest or a minister of other denomination. You have to be faithful and truth to your own belief, and to express, this is what we believe.
Right. Right. Back to the story you shared of that young nurse that you were counseling in your office. How did that impact you?
Well, it impacted me that I remember till this day the struggle that she was going through.
In what way was she struggling?
She was struggling because I reminded him of her brother, and that she couldn't do anything for them. There is a book called Rule Number 2. It's a fascinating book because the book is written specially for healthcare providers, such as nurses and doctors. And rule number 2 is that you cannot change rule number 1.
Which is?
And rule number one is that in war, that is the most horrendous thing, where there are no winners but losers. In war, young men and women die, and you can't stop that. So rule number one is that young men and women died. And rule number two is that you cannot change rule number one. And it's about the experiences of these young nurses also in in Iraq, that had to deal in combat with a lot of young people that were dying in combat.
Was that the most common kind of problem that you saw there, that people came to you for, just struggling with seeing?
In that last assignment, yes, that's one of the most common things. Other assignments, so we had to deal with people that were trying to kill themselves. Young people just out of high school, coming through basic training and training to come into the military, and they couldn't cope with that. We had issues, especially in the submarine community, where the sailors spend so much time away from home, a lot of broken homes. And that was a major issue that we deal there. So in different places, you deal with different things. In hospital chaplaincy, it's a little different. In hospital chaplaincy, you deal especially with people that have terminal illness, and a lot of also death, and people that go through traumatic experiences. In a way, it's similar, but it's more intensive. And I always say that you have to respect those people, especially in hospital settings, that walk with blood on their shoes. Nurses and different healthcare providers, physicians, that deal with that every day.
There's a lot of stress, I'm sure, that builds up, personal stress that builds up after seeing that, day after day.
Yeah, for me, I was able to deal with up to 3 deaths. That's my own thing. Up to 3 deaths in a week. More than that, I needed time for what I call self-care.
All right, I'm sure that comes in useful in your current job, and as you watch over other chaplains.
Yes.
We'll be talking more about that in our next segment, but for now, we're going to go for a break, and we'll be right back again with Dr. Ceballos to find out more about his current work as Associate Director for Chaplaincy at the General Conference. But first, a short break. Welcome back to Christian Connections. Once again, I'm with Dr. Mario Ceballos. He is the Associate Director for Chaplaincy at the General Conference. Welcome back, Dr.
Thank
Ceballos.
you.
So, as I mentioned, you are the Associate Director at the GC for Chaplaincy. How long have you had that position for?
Since 2008.
Okay. And what do your duties entail there?
Our duties is to support chaplains around the world. We have around the world about over 1,000 chaplains serving in different capacities. Most of our chaplains are serving in our colleges and universities. The second group of chaplains that we have are chaplains that are serving in our hospitals and in other hospitals other than Adventist hospitals around the world. And then we have a group of chaplains that serve in the military in 8 different nations of the world. And we have a good number of chaplains also serving in prisons around the world. And we have chaplains serving as, for example, police chaplains. We have a conference president that is a police chaplain in North America. In North America, we have that are fully endorsed as chaplains for the church, approximately about 400 chaplains. 250, 260 of those chaplains are chaplains serving as hospital chaplains. About half of them are serving in Adventist hospitals. The other half is serving in non-Adventist hospitals. We have a chaplain serving in the United States Senate, Chaplain Barry Black. He's the chaplain of the Senate. We have chaplains serving in airports, at Dulles Airport, at O'Hare Airport. We have chaplains serving in radio stations. We have chaplains serving in different industries, and there is a chaplain now serving with a truck company in the United States. We even had a request of a chaplain for a chaplain in a workers' union, and even in one of the political conventions. So we have chaplains in different positions.
Wow, that's a really varied range of chaplaincy.
Yes.
What does an airport chaplain do?
Believe it or not, if you pay attention in an airport, there are chapels inside the airports. So they serve those chapels. Many times you find people traveling from one airport to another because they are coming to visit a relative or attend the funeral of someone. And sometimes they have delays, or they have times in the airport where they are waiting for a connection. So they go to those chapels. And also to be prepared in case that there is an accident. God forbid an accident happens and a plane crashes. The families of those that were coming in that plane are going to flock to that airport. So looking for, they are trained to provide support for them.
All right, well, that's a really interesting list. How do you go about supporting all these different kinds of chaplains?
Well, when I came to my office, the major need that I saw was the need of training ministers to be chaplains. And that has blossomed into a major work around the world. When I travel around the world, that basically this year, for example, every month, I have been in a different country. Most of our work is to train those chaplains that are there. A division puts together a training. Chaplains from all over that division will come to a place. A division is a section of our church around the world, and you come over there and you provide that training. In the last month, I have been in Brazil. We had there mostly chaplains that are working in colleges and universities. From Brazil, I went to Africa. We were in Kenya and Uganda. There we were working with a small group of chaplains, but also attending a couple of retreats where they were having retreats for people, members of the church that are serving in the military of those countries. When I finish here in Loma Linda next week, I'm on my way to Romania, where we are going to be training hospital chaplains, putting through a little bit of clinical training for them. From there, we're going to Inter-America, Dominican Republic, where chaplains from the Inter-American Division will be receiving hospital training there. In the meantime, I have been visiting with chaplains in Florida. Florida, we have about about 70, 80 chaplains. So we had a retreat for them there. And after that, I was in a retreat for prison chaplains in Ohio. So most of my work has to do with training chaplains in different places around the world. In Africa also, we were in discussions with AUA, Adventist University of Africa, developing graduate programs to train chaplains in that section of the world.
So what does it take to be a good chaplain? Can anyone be a chaplain?
Yes, to be a chaplain, the first thing you need to, there are three things that I always say are needed to be a chaplain. You must have them. First, that you feel the call from God to be a minister. Second, that you prepare yourself for that. There are many people, for example, that want to serve as physicians. They have that call. Then they go to school for that. The training for a chaplain basically is college in religion and theology. Master's, usually is a Master's of Divinity or an equivalency. And if you are going for hospital training, clinical training. That is the first part of that second component, the training. And together with that, you need to learn how to minister. You don't learn that in a school. You do that by experiencing, by being a pastor. Usually that is about 2 years or 3 years of being a pastor. And during that time, you receive the third component, and that is the recognition of the church that yes, you are a minister that can be an ambassador and represent the church. Those three things are important. Again, number one, the call from God. Number two, the training and experience. And number three, the recognition of the church. And usually that is by receiving credentials or a license. Without that, you cannot practice. Because to be a chaplain, when people see you as a chaplain, they see a minister, a clergy, someone that can not only provide pastoral care, but also provide the ordinances of the church, such as communion, that can perform weddings, that can do funerals. And those things you learn as you do your experience in a church.
All right. Are there any personal skills or like personality traits you need to have before considering these?
Caring. That is very important. Being pastoral, having that pastoral presence is very important. And having a desire to serve others.
Right.
And if you have good listening skills, that's very important. You always, we tell the chaplains as we train them that the most important words that a chaplain can say are this: oh. In other words, being able to listen, empathize, and let the people talk. It's their agenda, not yours.
Right.
So if you're very talkative and always want to talk,
you might make a better pastor than
you may be a better evangelist.
Right. Right. Okay. So do you enjoy your work? Is what you currently do?
Yes, I enjoy my work because it's wonderful to see the faces of the people as you share what the role is of the chaplain and the importance of ministry, and see their faces as they light up to say, yes, that is what I want to do. So yes, I enjoy that. Sometimes it's difficult being away from home.
I'm sure.
It's not easy. It's not something that I enjoy, but it comes with the territory.
All right. When I was speaking to you earlier this week, you mentioned that the role of a hospital chaplain is similar to a story in the Bible found in 2 Kings. Would you like to share that story, maybe elaborate on that?
The story is found in the book of King, in the second Kings, and in the 5th chapter, and it's the story of Naaman. I find that story very, very powerful. For me, the main character in the story is not Naaman, and it's not Elisha either. It's the little girl. The little girl that we find in chapter 2, it says, a young girl who became his wife's servant. She is the main character. And for me, it's fascinating what she does. because what she does is witnessing. It's amazing to see that this young woman, yes, a little girl, we don't even know her name, was so impressed by the work of Elisha. That for me is like a chaplain, because he was the pastor to the king,
Right.
the pastor of the nation, in a way. That she was willing to testify. All of us Adventist chaplains and ministers and anybody in the church, our job is to witness, to testify. And she testified about the power of God and how powerful was God, and that Elisha was that instrument. Then because of that witnessing, two things happen. One of them is a byproduct of the witnessing. That byproduct is what many of us chaplains do. When we pray and we work with people and we see healing taking place. And Naaman, somewhat reluctant and about to forget about everything, he was persuaded by his servants to go into the water when it didn't make sense to him. And he did, and he was healed. So as a chaplain in a hospital, that is what I have done the most. It is wonderful to see people being healed. It reminds me of a story of a woman. I was asked to, or I came to do my job visiting one of the units in the hospital, and that is called MedPsych, meaning that the people that are there are not there because of their psychosis, even though they have a psych problem, but they are there because of another medical condition.
Okay.
And I came in, and I asked the nurse, "Is there anyone that you want me to see?" And she said, there is a woman that you may want to see. But even though when you see her name, you may want to say Eve or pronounce it as Eve, don't do that, because they don't like to be called Eve. She likes to be called Eva. Okay? So I said, fine. I came in, and guess what I call her?
Eve.
Eve. Purposely. Not because I forgot. And I called her Eve. And she said, I am not Eve. My name is Eva. And I said, well, it's fine then. Eva, how are you doing? And she said, I'm doing fine, but do you know what my name means? Who I am? And I said, oh, well, your name, as I pronounce it, is Eve, but you want me to call you Eva. That's what I know. And then she cited the Bible and said, you know what? My name is Eva because I am the mother of all nations. And then we kept on talking, and she said, do you believe me? And I said, well, my interpretation of the Bible is different. But that's what you believe. That's fine. That's fine. Is that what you believe? I don't happen to concur with you. We kept on talking. Then at the end, she said, you know what, chaplain? I'm going to stop telling my doctors that I'm Eva. Otherwise, they will never let me go out from here. In 2 days, she was gone. Whether she was healed or not, I don't know. But she was able to think through what she was going. So the second thing is that byproduct, the healing of Naaman. And then the third one is not a byproduct, is a result of the powerful witnessing. That is the most important thing here of this woman. That is basically the conversion of Naaman when he said, I accept the Lord your God as my God and will never again offer sacrifices to any God but him. The conversion of this high-ranking officer. So that I see the result of the chaplain. We witness, there are byproducts, healing, and a result, conversion of people.
Right. This made me think, I'm sure a question you get a lot as you worked as a hospital chaplain before was when people pray for healing and the healing doesn't come, unlike the story of Naaman, how do you deal with that?
Well, when you pray for healing, you pray for God to do a miracle. You pray for God to do something. God always answers. Sometimes he says yes, and sometimes he says no. How do I answer? My answer many times is basically the same. I don't know. There are many things that we don't know. And sometimes we have to live with that. I have gone through that many times with many people. I remember one time one of our pastors was diagnosed with cancer, and pastor got together and we all were praying. And my prayer was, God, I wish I could make a tea with a leaf of the tree of life, and offer that to my friend pastor. But we pray that thy will be done. We look at passages in the Bible. Lazarus, Jesus resurrected him. Where is he today? We live in this world that we suffer the consequences of sin.
Right.
Sometimes we don't have answers. But we do see miracles happening every day. In many hospitals around the world, they do open heart surgeries. I have a friend that is an open heart surgeon. He says, Mario, I stopped the heart. There is no switch that I can turn on for that, to have that heart going. I have to pray. Hopefully, it restart again.
Yeah.
So I have seen a lot of things happening. I remember one time I was asked to come and see a patient that was waiting for what is called heart catheterism. They go basically through your arteries and veins, and if something is blocked, they try to open it up. An angioplastic is also called. And I remember going into this room and seeing this man, an older man, reminded me of my grandfather. And the nurses said, you know, we cannot take him for catheterism because his blood pressure is too high. It was very high. And we talked a little bit, we prayed a little bit. Then I turned around and under my breath, so that nobody, especially the patient, could not hear me, I said, in my anxieties and unbelief, I said, well, I hope that helped. The nurse stopped me and she said, turn around. When I turned around, the blood pressure had dramatically dropped.
Wow.
So we do see those miracles happening every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes we dwell too much in, not in the non-answers from God, but in the answer from God when he says, no more.
Right. I'm sure in your experiences as both a hospital chaplain and a military chaplain, you've seen bad experiences either bring people closer to God, like seeing this new atheists in foxholes, or further away from God.
Yeah, when you are in moments of crisis, one of those two things happens. If you are not a believer, you may question God more, and you may distance yourself from God more because you do not understand it. That's when you are in crisis. But sometimes when you're in crisis, people change. I remember in an emergency room one time, I was asked to come in, and I was with this lady and her husband, and she was there because of heart trouble, a possibility of a heart attack, a lot of chest pain. And as we were talking, she just closed her eyes. And the line in the monitor went flat. Of course, those monitors are connected with the nursing station. And as soon as that went flat, nurses and doctors came in flying, jumped all over her. And as they began doing CPR, the heart began pumping again. And in a few minutes, they picked up everything and they left, her eyes open, and she asked, what happened? She didn't know. We explained to her what happened. The doctors were there and explained to her what happened. And after the doctors were gone and the husband and I were there, she asked the husband for her purse. She took the purse, opened the purse, and from inside the purse, she pulled out a pack of cigarettes. And she gave them to me. She said, I will never do this again. Whether she stopped smoking or not, I don't know. I never saw her after that. But at that moment, she realized she needed to stop something. and in a way brought her closer to God. So yes, we see that many, many times.
What makes a difference between how if an experience takes you closer to God or further away when tragic experiences happen? What makes a difference?
You believe, and you believe in God and where you are situated in life. The closer that you are to God, the more peaceful that you died. Sometimes has to do with your background. There was a man that was dying because of a stroke in the hospital and having a hard time dying. He didn't give up, but there was nothing that we could do for him. And he was struggling and struggling, and you could see his face very agitated. Apparently he was a man that he was very hard with the family, didn't believe in anything, in God or in anything. And the family was having a hard time because they saw him suffering there. But they were struggling with their own issues because they were not happy with him and about his life. They asked for one of our chaplains to go. It was a young chaplain. She was in training. Didn't know any better than to ask for a denomination or religion. And she came in the room, and the family was there. And because she didn't ask what denomination the person was, she offered to pray. She says, "Can I pray?" Probably she knew that he was an atheist. She would have not offered to pray. But she did offer. And the family said, "Yes. Our father was an unbeliever, but we want you to pray." First of all, there what you see is the need of the family. That was their need. And she prayed. And when she finished the prayer, she told me that when everyone opened their eyes, the face of this man was peaceful. Apparently his background was very religious. But later in life, he became an unbeliever in anything, and a very hard man. But in that moment, he went back. Within 5 to 10 minutes, he died peacefully. And that's the work of the chaplain.
Right. That was challenging working with atheist people.
Well, yes, but the important thing is to respect everyone regardless of their belief. One time I was asked to come into an emergency room again. The thing is that when I came into that hospital for the first time, nobody wanted to work in the emergency room because they didn't know how to do it. And neither did I, because in the emergency room you come to work with a patient and then boom, a doctor comes in, a nurse comes in, and the attention of the patient is to the doctor. The patient is there not knowing, many of them, what's going on in their lives. They don't feel good. They want to know what's going on. The doctor comes in, you step aside. And some people feel uncomfortable with that. I didn't. So I was in the emergency room and a nurse asked me to come to take care of a family. She was from another city far away, had driven to that place, and her husband was playing golf. And he dropped dead in the golf course.
Wow.
He was brought into the emergency room, already dead. And I went to her and I asked her, "Is there anything I can? I'm the chaplain. I'm here." And she said, "Get out of my face. I'm atheist. I don't believe in God." I said, "That's fine. I'm leaving, but before I leave, I just want to tell you that I'm here not to push religion down your throat, but to assist you, to help you." And she said, "Okay, call my son. He's an attorney." I did. I was there with her for 2 solid hours, ministering to her. And when I left, I had an open eye prayer. With my eyes open, I looked at her and I said, "I wish that everything works out for you and with your family." That was prayer. And we parted ways in a very friendly fashion. She cried with me, and that's how you minister to people that are of different faith, even if they don't believe in what you believe.
Wow, that's quite a story. Looking back at all your experiences as in the military as a chaplain, the hospital as a chaplain, How do you think your years of experience in those areas, how have they helped you in your current position?
Well, I understand what the chaplains are going through. I understand the process. I understand what is important and how we can support them best, how we can train them and prepare them for their job. So that's the most important part.
All right. Okay. Do you have any closing words for our audience listening today?
Yes, we all can do the job of the chaplain. When you see someone in need, when you see someone that needs support, yes, sometimes being there is what we call in chaplaincy the ministry of presence. Sometimes, yes, being there is of support and offer words of support, condolences. Sometimes when someone is going through a very difficult time, all you have to do is bring food or come in and help them in any ways. Pray, an open eye prayer, audible prayer, or a silent prayer. I remember when my father was very ill in a nursing home, my pastor came in. The only thing he did was to stand in a corner in the ICU room with his eyes closed for about 3 hours. He didn't utter a word to me. He just prayed. Pray for my father, pray for me, for my family. That I will never, ever forget. He was there for me. That's what you can do.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ceballos, for joining us.
Very much.
I've learned so much about chaplaincy, and God bless the work you do and the work of the chaplains out there. If you have any questions or feedback about this program or for Dr. Ceballos, feel free to contact us here at LLBN. Information's on the screen. I'd love to hear more from you. But for now, we're going to go to a musical break.
Welcome back to the studios of Christian Connection, and we have a special guest. In fact, we're going to take you on a trip. How would you like to visit Brazil? Well, Brazil is really a fabulous country. That's if you have $1 million. Now, if you don't have $1 million and the Lord speaks to you and says, hey, pick up and take your family south because I've got a mission work that I need you to do, how ready would you be to take and answer that challenge? We're going to ask Sandy
De Senna.
Thank you. Sandy, you used to live in California.
Yes, we lived here for many years. My husband and I were married in Riverside, and I worked as a public school teacher for about 13 years, and my husband was an artist, and our older 2 children were born here.
So you were well established in the community and
Yes.
had a couple of kids. Tell me about the kids you had in America.
Well, my oldest is Juliana, who's here with us today.
Hi, Juliana.
Hi,
Welcome to Christian Connections.
thank you.
And the second one is Joshua. He's our son, and now he's 10. And our third one was born down in Brazil after we already moved.
Yeah,
She's 5 now.
So tell me about the experience of the Lord touching your heart and changing. I mean, were you always bent on serving the Lord in any way that He put before you?
I guess God led us on interesting journeys. I mean, both my husband and I. In my case, I came from a Christian background. I was raised as a Christian. My mother, I remember, instilled in us the importance of attending church, and I have many memories of her making us go to church, and so I thank her for that. And it wasn't until I was, I guess, in college after I met my husband, when I started to study more of the scriptures to find out exactly what the truth is. And several years later, we were married, and I had already become Adventist. I'd become baptized, and we were attending a church that we just didn't really feel that we were being fed. It was, I guess, entertaining, and it was very interesting. We had a lot of friends, but we just didn't feel that we were really being fed.
You're kind of describing a country club or a social club. And
Yeah.
many churches are
like that,
way
unfortunately. Yes. And then later we found another church that we really learned a lot of things. We learned how to study our Bibles more. We studied Spirit of Prophecy. We studied. We made a lot of changes in our lives that are for the better, and we learned about living in the country. And we decided that that was what God was calling us to do. We wanted to serve God and share what we had learned, but we didn't really know where God wanted us to go.
Okay, so you're a city girl. You don't have anything prior experience in farming or fixing broken limbs or
No, not really.
Kind of stuff, right?
No.
So the Lord is touching your heart. He is sending His Holy Spirit to get you interested in studying more Scripture, and you learn these truths. What about your husband?
My husband, when I had met him, he was outside of the church at the time. And then over time, we, both of us together, because we were spiritually interested, and we studied more and became closer to each other and closer to the Lord. And he's the one who had initially made the first step to go, because he was raised Adventist. And so we just continued learning more and studying more, and we just together, we're very close. We're best friends. And we have always made God first in our relationship, and we felt that we both felt that this was what God was leading us to do, to serve Him in this way. But we weren't sure how. We just left it open for God to guide us.
So did He come and give you a message like He gave to Abraham, just pack up your tents and time to go?
Well, not exactly like that. We knew that God was calling us to move to the country, and we knew that God had given us certain gifts that He gives to everybody. To all who ask, He gives gifts liberally. And He had given myself the gift of tongues to be able to learn languages easily. And to my husband, He had given a real gift of making friends easily and teaching. And also to myself, teaching children. And so we left it open to the Lord to how He wanted to use us. And an opportunity opened up down in Brazil. My husband is Brazilian, but he had lived here for many years. And we put it before the Lord as far as selling our house for a certain amount of money. And as far as the property that we were looking at, if the owner would come down in the price. And so we've set up many fleeces before the Lord, and each time it came back positive.
So one day, you had to make the decision, though.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was hard because my family is all here, and it was going to be a difficult decision to make. But we had already decided that wherever God would lead us, that we would go. And as Abraham left, not knowing exactly what he was going to be doing or where he was going to be going, but he was obedient to the Lord. And so we wanted to be obedient too.
So why did you choose the name Revelation 14 as your title of your mission?
Well, because we've been studying prophecy a lot, and we can see that God is calling his people in these last days. Jesus is coming back very soon, and it tells us in Revelation 14:6 about the everlasting gospel to be spread to every kindred and nation and tongue and people. And God put it upon our hearts to bring it to that corner of the world.
Yeah, that commission is at least mentioned in 3 times in Scripture prior to Matthew 28:19. That's the same kind of commission. And so whenever God repeats something in the Bible, it has special significance, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So you took that wholeheartedly. Juliana, how old were you when this was all happening and they announced the decision? What were you thinking?
Well, I was like almost 5 years old, and I thought it was great that I was going to go to the Amazon with my family and help people learn about Jesus. Of course, I was sad and a little bit nervous because I would be leaving all my family and every place that I knew as home here, and I would just be going into a place that I had never seen before. But I was very, very excited.
And how about your siblings, your brothers?
Well, he was 2.5.
So he didn't really care at that
well,
point.
I guess not.
So this decision you made, how did you announce it to Giuliani?
I don't really remember. I just remember that we were very pleased with how the kids did react. We've been very blessed with wonderful children. They are truly a blessing to us, and they have adapted very easily to our change there. And they also adapt easily when we come back to visit, because there's a big culture difference when we go there and we come back, and they've adapted beautifully.
So you made the trip. You're now in Brazil, and I got a picture of your family in Brazil. Tell us about this picture.
That picture was taken a few years ago. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of pictures of us all together. This is one that I had of the whole family together.
So who's who?
My husband is on the left. That's Aloysio. Some people call him Al, and some people call him Lou. There, he's called Aloysio. And it's myself in the center, and Julie on the right, and Joshua on the furthest right, and that's Joanne there in the middle.
And she's the one that is now a Brazilian citizen and a U.S. citizen. Do they have dual citizenship?
All 3 of them have dual citizenship. Yeah, she was born there, but she was given a counselor abroad, birth abroad certificate. But they're both official. All 3 of them are officially Brazilian and American.
So we got a map here. Explain to us where you're located in Amazonia.
Okay. Well, if you see the green states on the top in the north, we're right near the equator. In the state of Amazonas, there is a city called Manaus, and we're about an hour northeast of Manaus in a little town called Rio Preto da Eva.
Say that again, please.
Rio Preto da Eva.
Preto da Eva.
Right. It literally would translate as Black River of Eve. Eve's Black River.
Eve's Black River. Now,
yes.
There's got to be a story behind that, I imagine.
There may be. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, this is a picture of the city, isn't it?
Yes, this is the main street that goes through town. There are no stoplights, or I don't believe there's even any stop signs. But there are little streets that go off to the left and to the right. There's about 27,000 people that live in this town. And there are also streets that go off to the side that are dirt roads, and they can go back for many kilometers, and they're back in rural areas.
I don't see any McDonald's or Burger King or anything.
No, we don't have any fast food chains or anything there, but there are restaurants and stores, and just to provide basic things.
So this is the road to the main street.
Right. There are many of these roads that go down. We ourselves live off of one. It's called a ramal when it's a dirt road like that, and they can go back for many miles. And it makes traveling interesting during the raining season.
And what do they call it during the rainy season? A flood? Or I mean,
Well,
this looks like it's very difficult to negotiate in
It
any weather.
it is. In fact, when school buses, because school buses from the city go in and pick up kids, and sometimes they can't even get to them because it's so bad, so they don't even try, and the kids just miss school that day. Fortunately, we have a four-wheel drive, though it's kind of falling apart. We shake, rattle, and roll as we go down the Hamal during the dry season, and during the wet season, we just kind of slip and slide our way down.
Yeah, so what about wild animals? Do you fear, jaguars or something jumping out of the woods?
Well, where we live, we do have rainforest right behind us and on this side, and we have seen a lot of interesting creatures. We haven't actually had a jaguar come up to our place yet, but they pretty much stay further back in the forest. They don't come to the fringes very often.
Well, that could be good news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is your house.
Yes.
And tell us about this house.
Well, when we bought the property, there weren't any structures there. We had that one built, and we had used the money that we had sold our house for, and I had made some investments as well. And before we were able to finish the house, we'd run out of money. So it looks pretty much the same way as it does now. It hasn't.
Work in progress. You got a nice
Yes.
veranda there, and enough
Yes.
bedrooms for the kids, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. What about for guests that want to come and visit you? What do you just park them out in the front yard? Or?
No, not exactly. They either sleep out in the living room. We have like a sofa bed there, or I move in with my brother and sister, and they can sleep in my room.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have many visitors that come down and visit you?
Well, we have visitors, not ones that usually stay overnight, but yeah, we have a lot of friends and people that we know that come down and visit us.
Well, we have a picture of your dad, and he likes to participate in the service and the worship on Sabbath, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. He's a very social person, and he likes to be with young people because he is very. He has that personality.
Yeah. What's he doing here in this picture?
Well, there he's preaching in our home church, and he's preaching about Revelation 14, I believe.
How coincidental.
Yeah.
Tell us about your home church. How big is it?
Well, it's about half the size of the normal churches that here.
Yeah. So
And
150 members, maybe, I'm guessing?
200.
200?
200,
Well,
yes.
that's a pretty good sized church.
Sometimes it's quite squished.
Yeah.
And they have a children's Sabbath school, but it's there's a great lack of spiritual education there. And my mom's doing the juniors for my Sabbath school, and she does a great job. I have to say that.
Do you help in teaching children about Jesus?
Well, we have a school in Brazil that's for kindergarten to second grade. And then we also have a daycare, we could say a preschool. And then I help in well, first I do my homework and my schoolwork.
Good girl.
And
Daddy must be very proud.
yes, because I'm homeschooled, and so we have our own little room that there's a computer there and we can study, and then afterwards I go up to the school area, and I usually work in the preschool, which are the 2 to 3 year olds, and then I work in the afternoon, and they have the 3 and 4 year olds in a group.
Well, Sandy, we have a picture. It looks like it's a baptism going on. Tell me what about this.
My husband has worked with several people in town. He does Bible studies one-on-one. As my daughter mentioned, he is very social, and he makes friendships easily, and he offers Bible studies to people. And many people have become baptized as a result of his contact and his studies with them. They were 2 sisters in that picture that he had given studies to, and had they later made the decision to be baptized. But he's always very careful to make sure that they have a strong foundation, because unfortunately many times people are baptized without really knowing what they're getting into almost, or really understanding the scriptures well. And so he encourages them to wait until they really have a good understanding.
That is really a challenge in some of these foreign countries. We hear stories about churches being built for congregations, and they kind of melt away, and then the building stands empty. And,
Right.
A way to combat that, you're saying, is immersion in the Scripture, and not just listening to someone telling you about it. It's really a personal thing, isn't it?
Right. You have to have a strong foundation. Otherwise, you'll just be knocked down when the winds come.
I see you like to play the piano.
Yes, I often do special music in church, and my brother plays the violin, and sometimes we play together and sometimes we play separately.
And so you love music and you love studying? And
Yes.
what's your favorite subject in homeschool?
Probably English.
English?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I like learning about. Because when I'm a teacher in the school, the children's school, I have to use proper language sometimes, and even though I speak Portuguese, it sometimes helps me.
Now, did Juliana get the gift of tongues like you did?
She has learned Portuguese very well. She speaks without an accent. So she's...
It is a difficult language, to say the least, at least for me. But I see you saying, oh, not for me.
Well, I think that different people have been given different gifts. And I already knew Spanish before I met my husband and before I started learning Portuguese. So I think that made it a little bit easier for me to understand. And the children learned it since they were babies. My husband would speak to them in Portuguese in our home while we lived here. And then when we moved to Brazil, we kept English as the only language of our home because we had so much Portuguese around us.
So, well, praise God for that.
Yes.
We have some kind of a campfire here, or looks like a Vespers, or?
Yeah, this was a camp meeting that we had at our house. Frequently, we have the youth come over, and maybe it might be for a Sabbath afternoon, or it might be for a whole weekend, and we'll do Bible studies. That they'll bring their instruments, whether it's guitar or a recorder, and we'll play and we'll sing, and sometimes we'll go for a hike out in the forest in the backyard. And many people have told us that they just kind of feel at peace at our place. They enjoy having a place to go on Sabbath afternoons because in town, pretty much all of them live in town, and there's not really anything for them to do in the afternoons.
So do any of these kids or the people that you work with bring the truth to their parents and you baptize them as a family? Any stories like that?
There are families that my husband has been working with. One in particular, her name is Laura, and she started taking Bible studies with my husband a while back. And her friends that were also taking studies had wanted to get baptized, and she wanted to wait until she really understood it well. And she comes from a pretty troubled family. Her father is alcoholic and a drug addict. Actually, he's a drug addict. And there's often stealing that happens in the family. And though the mother works very hard, there's this constant lack of what they need in the home. And so my husband continued the studies with her, and sometimes the father would attend the studies, and the mother as well. And right before we left, in fact, I think it was the very night that we left, she was baptized, and her her parents were there, and they were very supportive. And so we think that one day the doors will open up for the studies to be able to continue with them, and that one day they'll accept it too.
Okay, here's the best part. Noah's Ark Christian School. Tell me about why did you call it Noah's Ark?
Well, in our town, there are a lot of factors against the children that live in our town. There's a high poverty rate, there's a lot of illiteracy, a lot of drugs and alcohol.
What's the drug of choice among the population there?
I really don't know.
Yeah, but you see the effects.
Right, yeah. There are, we have some personal friends that had been addicted to the drugs, and we've tried helping them, and it's a very difficult battle that they face. So there's a lot of these factors against. And
lots of crime associated with the drug activity?
Yes, there's lots of robberies and things like that.
How about violence?
Some, just more associated with robberies when there are. So we saw a lot of overcrowding in the schools, and we saw a real need for quality education for the children and a chance for them to succeed, not only academically, but also for them to have a future spiritually, for them to get to know Jesus Christ. So my sister-in-law and I decided that, well, it was really the God that led us to start a school down there. And we started in 2009 with only 2 students. And we just kind of stuck it out for several months until the following year. And then our numbers doubled. We had about 20.
Who's this that we're looking at?
That's my sister-in-law. That's Vanya Scheffel. And she's my husband's sister. So she's the one that we started this school with.
Colorful gates, I could say.
I'm sorry?
Colorful gates.
Yes, we just recently painted the front of the school to make it look more child-friendly. This building was a real answer to prayer, because last year we were in dire straits because the landlord wanted us out and we had no place to go, and we didn't know what we were going to do. So Vanya and I got down on our knees in the office one day, and we just prayed our hearts out, and we said, God, we know you don't want us to stop this school because so many children are being blessed by it. They're learning about you, and if it's really your will that we continue this school, please provide a way for us to continue. And that afternoon, we found out about this particular building, and it was open to us to rent. So we were very thankful. It was a direct answer to prayer. We've had some challenges because the rent is 3 times as much.
Oh.
And we had to build over on the right side. You can see that the yellow building with the paint under it. We had to build that for
so
our
you make
first
an
and second grade.
addition to improve property improvement.
Yes.
So what kind of, give me an idea, what's the rent for this property?
The rent is about 1,600 reais per month, which is about maybe $900 a month. To give you an idea, our teachers are paid about 650 reais, so it's the cost of about 3 teachers just to pay the rent.
Just to pay the rent.
Just
And,
to pay the
and how
rent.
many teachers that do you have?
We have 9 teachers and aides, and we have a cafeteria worker and a secretary, and then my sister-in-law acts as principal, and I'm sort of like a vice principal, and we both...
Yeah, you got the curriculum. I mean, you developed it when you taught and,
Right, yeah.
and with your own kids, so perfect.
Right.
Perfect match. That's another gift.
Yes.
And obviously it has really paid off well in the case of Juliana. She is a very sharp little girl, a young lady. So who are these people?
This is our staff from last year. Most of the teachers are still there. This was after the September 7th Independence Day Parade.
So you mentioned what's the nut that you have to crack a month? Salaries, food, rent, electricity. What kinds of challenges do you face?
A lot of challenges, principally because our first and second grade that we had added second grade this year.
Are these second graders?
No, these
Those are kindergartens.
This is preschool. These are our 3-year-olds. They're a very exuberant bunch. They're wonderful. They just really enjoy singing and all their activities. They just are very excited about.
Lovely, healthy children.
Yes, yes.
It's a private school what we're talking about.
Well, yes, we have sort of. We have the preschool, which is ages 2 to 5, and then we have the early elementary, which is first and second grade. With our first and second grade, in order to stay in function, we had to make an arrangement with the public school system. So those students are public school students who don't pay tuition. We have about 40 students. And then the rest are the preschool, and that's private, and they do pay tuition.
Okay, you started to tell us a story about 2 students that you started out with, and then they became 20. Now,
And then 40, and then 80, and now we have about 90.
So 90 students. So
Yes.
what's it cost to open the doors every month?
It costs several $1,000s to be able to just to pay our bills, and we struggle just to pay the bills, really. Vanya and I were the last ones to get paid. Once all the bills are paid and all the teachers are paid, then we look and see what's left, and there's usually very little that's actually left. Normally we get less than what the teachers get.
Good thing that you're not in it for the money, isn't it? Praise God.
Yes, but God has always helped us meet our needs every month, and we've...
So you're not a 501c3 organization yet, are you?
No, we're not. Now we are working on the legalization process to be an official school, that's a process that involves a lot of red tape, and it takes time and more money to be able to do that.
Accreditation and all the legal permits and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So that's more expenses we've had this year since we started that that process.
So obviously you need some financial support to carry on this mission. I mean,
Yes.
look at these kids. This is one of your teachers. What are they teaching them now?
This is kindergarten, and this was during Pet Appreciation Week. We were teaching them about animals and how to be kind to animals, how to take care of them, and that they're God's gift to us. So she was teaching about that at the time.
Juliana, tell me what is your favorite type of animal?
Brazilian animal?
Yeah.
Probably parrot,
A parrot.
because they have so many different kinds. Every sunset and sunrise, they fly over our house, and in whole flocks. And there's like, I don't know, maybe 50
At a time?
at a time.
Wow. And they're big?
And well, some of them are big, some of them are different colors, and some of them are just green, or there's some red-bellied macaws, or
Are they ever mean?
mean?
Yeah.
No.
No, always friendly.
Well, they fly pretty noisily, and then when they get over a house, they act really quiet, like we don't know they're there. So, but they don't get away with it. But they seem to really respect people, even though they don't live around them. They live deep in the forest, but they fly out.
So it sounds like you have really gained an appreciation for all living things in the jungle
Yeah,
that you've been exposed to.
yeah.
What do you think about the difference between living here and living there?
Well, it's quite different. It's very, well, there's several major things like the climate and the people, and the people are very warm and friendly there. I mean, very close. If you get to know them, they can be very close. They can be like family. The climate there is like a lot moister than here. It's a lot more humid, and they're really, the houses are different. Everything's different there. Not in a bad way. It's just that it's a lot different than here.
So what do you consider your home now? Brazil or California?
Well, I guess wherever God leads us is our home. I mean, that's where we are now, so that's our home. But we have family and friends here. But wherever.
Is this world our
we
home?
go- No, no.
So it doesn't really
heaven.
matter where God places
Yeah.
it, isn't it? A very, very good answer. So I see in this picture that there's a large spiritual component in your school.
Yes, our school has two major areas of focus, and we always make sure the parents understand this when they come to enroll their students, that our first is the spiritual development of the children. We want to teach them about Jesus and help them to develop Christian characters and learn their Bibles. And then the second is for academic development. We have a strong emphasis on that too. So all of the activities that we do in the school are either a combination of those two or one or the other of those areas of focus. So every day it's like a Sabbath school at our school, because they start off the day singing and hearing a Bible story, praying, and the students see this model of the teachers praying with them. And most of them are not Seventh-day Adventist, or many don't even come from any religious background, really. And so this is really their first experience learning about Jesus. And so there have been a lot of changes made in families.
As we look at this fabulous picture of all these kids, tell us again, you go from preschool to
Second grade.
second grade.
Right,
And
ages
then-
2 to 7.
And so you're preparing them for a life in public school.
Yes, many of our students go on. At that point, they go on to, there is a Seventh-day Adventist Academy that's a little bit further down. And so many of them do go there. And that is it's a boarding school that's up in, for that area of Brazil that many Adventist families send their children to. And also many people from the city do too. But their emphasis is more on the junior high and high school.
You also focus on areas of health outside of the academics, like nutrition.
Yes, we teach them about the 8 laws of health that God has given us to help them to stay healthy. And this year, because we have that larger building that we talked about, we have a kitchen, and we're able to provide healthy snacks and meals for the students. Many of them would bring just junk for their snacks, and it would be very frustrating because we wanted to teach them how to eat healthy.
They have junk food there where you live?
Oh yeah, yes, a lot of it.
Well, what's the most popular junk food on there in the town?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Oh, that's not junk food. That's vitamins. Well, many of us think of that.
Yes.
You know, isn't that sad?
So yeah, chocolate in any form, it's their favorite. Chocolate cookies, chocolate milk, chocolate cake. Yeah.
So where does lettuce fit in this picture?
Well, that was when we made hamburgers or garden burgers for the class, and they actually took to it really well. They liked it a lot.
So you think they're ready to give up their junk food?
Some of them have been showing lots of progress, like this little 3-year-old girl. She's very enthusiastic with whatever we teach her. We can see really quickly that it made a impression on her. And one day the teacher was talking about junk food and how bad it is for our bodies, and what the kids could bring instead. And she was sitting there thinking, and then the next day, this was when we were already starting to give out lunches, and the next day she said, "Teacher, I'm not bringing any more junk food because I want to live healthy, because when I go to heaven I want to have a clean body."
Oh, isn't that special?
Yeah, and the teacher is very moved, and she, now when the little girl goes home, and snacks is a very, very big part of the meals there. It's not really a meal that they have. It's more like they snack throughout the day, and especially the little kids. And she doesn't snack anymore, and if she does snack, she tells her mother that she wants food that's healthy for her, like fruits and vegetables.
So you think it's really important that these kids get the firm foundation of the truth about all things, not just what they can learn in school, but what they can learn about God and their bodies and how to treat it.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Holy Spirit considers our body a temple, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to live in a sewer, right?
Yeah.
So it's really an important lesson that everybody needs to learn, especially in this country.
Right.
You know, because we have want of nothing, and we think, we're so good sometimes. So
That's right.
tell us about this last picture.
We teach the children how to serve the community as well. It's important to us to develop the good citizenship skills and compassion for others. This is part of the character development that we do. At the end of the year, we do a sort of food drive with the families, and then we deliver food baskets to the needy. And so in that particular picture, that was when we had delivered them at the end of the year around Christmas time. And it was very moving. It was a wonderful experience, and it was good for our children as well, because they could see just the extreme poverty that some people live in. So to help us not take for granted things that we have.
We've been talking about your work, and we've also talking about what it takes to do that work, and you really are in need at this time.
Yes.
What are the basic things that you should have that you don't have that would really make a difference in your ministry?
One thing that we're in need of for our personal ministry is a computer and a printer, or a laptop and a printer, because my husband does Bible studies with people, and we're down to our other computers have given out that we brought with us, and we just have the one. And he needs to be able to print. Printing expenses it's expensive down there to print things at the print shop, so he needs to be able to print things at home. So a laptop and a printer is something that we need.
Now you really need 5. But you're only asking for 1.
Yes.
That's the truth, isn't it?
For ourselves, yes. The school also is in need of 1, because that one is burning out. It's smoke's
you
coming
really
out of it and
need
everything.
10, right? But you're only asking for 1. Is that right or not?
That we need 10? I don't think we need 10.
You don't need 10.
No.
So what else do you need if you don't need 10?
Well, we need, for our own family, we need some basic financial help because we're
Support.
not meeting our own needs each month because all of our time is used up in serving. As far as the school, we have, I mentioned that we need a computer and a laptop for the school. We also, because we're trying to build up the kitchen and selling, we sell granola and whole wheat bread, but we have this tiny little oven and it only fits one tray in there. So we really need an industrial size oven so that we can be more productive. We've already made many sales of the granola, so we're trying to help.
It'd be self-supporting.
Right, right. To help
so how
meet our
much does one of those
expenses.
ovens cost? Do you have any idea? Down there?
Maybe about $1,000.
$1,000?
In dollars.
And
yeah.
in our talking, I heard you mention that your truck is falling apart.
Yes, it is.
That's going to be next, right?
Yes.
I'm challenging you folks. This is really a need. We don't know how good we have it there, but they need a truck. Is there anyone that could help them with a truck? It doesn't even have to be new, or computers or financial support. I'll tell you what, the Lord is coming soon, and Scripture, Spirit of Prophecy, warns us about hoarding our treasures on earth. This earth can't last very much longer, and I really would appeal that the Holy Spirit would touch your heart and that you would support this mission or missions like this, because this is how the work is getting done. And if you watch TV, you already know that the rocks are crying out. Those people in the secular world have more hold of what time it is on earth than we do. So pay attention and listen to the Holy Spirit as He communicates to you. Now, we're all out of time. I'd like you to just talk to your camera there and just talk directly to the audience. What would you like to see to them?
I guess I would just like to encourage everybody who loves the Lord to give of themselves to the Lord, because when we freely offer ourselves, then He will bless that. He'll bless our efforts, and we can be a blessing to others in ways that we never even imagined. And in so doing, in the difficulties and the tribulations that we experience, we grow in our characters, and we grow patience and in many ways that we never imagined, and that prepares us for heaven.
Juliana, I'm going to give you the last word. What message would you like to give to the people that are watching this program all around the world? Right in that camera there.
Well, I just like to say that any kids that think that they that they can't do anything, that they're too small, or that they're not good enough, that it's not true, because you can make a big difference. You can help, you can save lives for the kingdom, and you just have to pray and ask the Lord what He wants you to do.
Well, there you have it, the last word from Juliana and her mom, Sandy, here on Christian Connections. If you need more information, contact us here, or the information that is a direct contact for them, so that you can support this mission, not only financially, but I'll tell you what, prayer trumps money. Prayer trumps money 100 to 1. So if you're not in position to support these ministries, then you can support them in prayer. So I would encourage you and invite you to get involved, because the time is short. Well, that is true, so I have to get out of here. So on to this right here, next on Christian Connections.
There is no problem too big, God cannot solve it. Ooh. There is no mountain too tall, God cannot move it. Ooh. There is no storm too dark, God cannot calm it. There is no sorrow too deep, He cannot soothe it. Oh, if He carried the weight of the world upon His shoulders, I know, my brother, that He will carry you. Oh, if He carried the weight of the world upon His shoulders, I know, my sister, that He will carry you. He said, come unto me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. 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 There is no problem too big, God cannot solve it. There is no mountain too tall, He cannot move it. Ooh. There is no storm too dark, God cannot calm it. There is no sorrow too deep, He cannot soothe it. Oh, if He carried the weight of the world upon His shoulders, oh, I know, my brother, that He will carry you. Oh, if He carried the weight of the world upon His shoulders, oh, I know, my sister, that He will carry